Hey, homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. My name is Jennifer. Welcome to Miles Away Farm, or welcome back. And today we are resetting the Greenstalk planters with the strawberries that have been in them for the last couple of years. But I have a bit of dilemma, which is if you take a look at this planter, and these were taken apart in the fall and stored with a tarp over the winter. I've lost a few plants, but nothing I can't easily fix. But if you've ever looked at a Greenstalk closely, and a lot of people miss this, there's actually along the edge here, this says soil to top. And if you can look at where our actual soil level is here, we're down at least a couple of inches. And so these over the last couple of years have sunk, and I need to top off the soil. The problem is if I just put a couple of inches of more soil on here, strawberry crowns, which is the center top part of the plant, they really don't like to be covered. And I can't just add soil to this, which means I would have to physically dig up and replant every one of these plants. And we have 7 tiers here, and there's 6 plants in each tier. So that's up to 42 different plants. I've probably lost maybe 10, but I don't want to hand dig up and disturb the roots and then replant 32 plants. And so what I'm going to try to do instead, and this is completely an experiment, is I'm going to put these 55-gallon drum lids over the top of this, flip it over, and then put more soil in the bottom of the pot, and then slide that soil chunk back into the pot. So that's my fiendish plan. We will see how well it works. But first, I need to move all of these planters over to where I'm going to move the Greenstalk this year, which is on the corner of my deck. My deck faces east, and I've had a lot of problems with these Greenstalks, I think just getting too hot in the summertime, and I don't get a great harvest off of them. And so I'm going to try seeing if morning sun and afternoon shade helps solve that problem. So first, we're just going to move all of these Greenstalks and get them staged on the other side of the yard, and then we'll try flipping them over and topping off the soil. Anybody else a flinger when they're doing gardening tasks? Drives my husband crazy, which is ironic because I'm actually really detail oriented and he's much more big picture. So he doesn't tend to be the neatest person in the world. But there's something for me so satisfying about flinging weeds, flinging dead leaves and stuff off of things when I'm doing this kind of work. So I never have like a nice, neat bucket where I'm putting everything. I'm always just tossing stuff over my shoulder. And I absolutely refuse to apologize for it because it gives me so much satisfaction. So clearly I wasn't able to lift and slide the entire mass of soil into this pot again, but I am able to take it out in basically 6 chunks, and that's working pretty well. I'm not getting a lot of root disturbance here, and I'm able to just pick up pieces. And this soil is moist, but it's not especially wet because I knew I was going to be doing this and I was trying to save on weight. So the first year we were really serious about gardening on this property was 2012. And before these raised beds went in, this was an asparagus and strawberry bed. And over time, a lot of the asparagus got eaten by gophers and the strawberry bed basically just got really matted because they just kept sending out runners and rooting and sending out runners and rooting. I have heard that most strawberry beds should be reset every 3 years to avoid the plants getting way too crowded. What was happening by the end is all of the strawberries I was getting were the size of the tip of my pinky. So they were super small fruits. So we've taken most of that bed out, but we still have some volunteers tucked in here and there, which is handy when you want to refill some holes.
All right, fellow gardeners, this is not working as smoothly as I had it in my head, mostly because it's just too heavy. It's too heavy with the weight of the soil, the plants, and then the 2 metal discs for me to seamlessly, with a little bit of gravity, flip that over. It does mostly hold together, but then trying to get everything back into the planter with it holding together is not working. So I'm doing the best I can, but I'm also pruning things up as I go here and taking out dead stuff. So like this plant is definitely gone. Anything that I'm not seeing active growth on, I'm just gonna go ahead and tear out because I have lots of extra baby strawberries that I can throw in here. And so even though some of these, I don't know, they might eventually show some signs of life, I'm not gonna bother. I'm just gonna tear them out. And I'm pruning off all the dead stuff. There's lots of old runners and things in here. But then I've got stuff like this. This is actually 2 plants. There's a plant here and a plant here. I'm just gonna divide this in half. And I'll leave 1 plant in this pocket, and then I'll plant the other plant in this pocket so that we only have 1 plant per pocket. And here's a reminder on Greenstalks when you're reassembling them, and I always forget this. These gray trays go in between, and they have little holes in them. And I like to shine a light through them and make sure that I can see light through all of those, because if those are plugged up, that pocket is not going to be getting water. And so it's important that these be fairly cleaned out. And they just sit right on top of this little spindle in the middle, but you want to align your holes to the pocket. And I always forget to do that. So just a reminder, if you're reassembling, to do that as part of your process. As I'm replanting these, I am using Miracle-Gro Organic raised bed and garden soil. It is organic. Actually, I need to check and see what they mean by organic, because that can mean a lot of things. It does not, I don't think, have the OMRI symbol on it, but it should be a natural organic fertilizer that is slow release. But the guys from MI Gardener did some really fun, interesting experiments last year with all different kinds of potting soils. And not surprisingly, the ones that actually had actual fertilizer in them and not just compost were the ones that did the best. And so I decided for these, I'm not going to be precious about it, and I'm just going to buy an off-the-shelf product that I think is going to do well. So I'm going to refill these empty pockets with the strawberries I just dug up, and we'll keep going.
So OMRI stands for Organic Materials Review Institute, and it's actually a national program that certified organic growers have to comply with and use OMRI products if they're going to stay certified organic. So it's a symbol that you can look for on packages and make sure that your product is officially organic in terms of national certification. However, the term organic isn't regulated in terms of just saying something is organic. And organic can mean it's made out of natural materials, it's made out of carbon. There's a lot of ways of defining organic. And so I do look for the OMRI symbol on things in order to make sure that something has actually met that requirement.
All right, this is the last tower. This one had a ton of plants in it. There were a lot of runners that had rooted that I hadn't realized, and so what I thought was 1 plant was sometimes 3 or 4 plants. So I have a lot of babies, and I'll put some of these in pots just to act as backup. But what I ended up doing was digging everything out and replanting on this top tier, and then hopefully you can see this. Our soil level is almost to the rim over here, but it's way down in the middle. And so I'm going to put new soil in the middle. So I just kind of squished everything out to the sides in order to raise those up. And then I'll put some of the new potting soil in the center. This will be the last tower going on. So I'm glad to have this project done. I have long since lost track of the different varieties of strawberry that I have in here. I've tried everbearing strawberries. I've tried June-bearing strawberries. I've never had anything that consistently was great. Seascape is an everbearing that doesn't send out a lot of runners, and I did have some of those in here. They did not do particularly well, and for a long time you can see the blue marks on the tower. That was marking where the seascapes were. Those no longer are valid because I've had a lot of them die off over time. And I'm not really sure whether having everbearing versus June-bearing is going to make any difference. I did find a tag in here for Quinault. Quinault is supposed to be an everbearing strawberry, and so a lot of these are Quinault. I think I planted these 2 years ago. And then the ones that I was digging up in my raised bed garden, I don't remember the variety on that, but that one is a June bearing, which means they put on most of their fruit all at once in June and then they're done for the year. So yeah, it's a random mix. And if I ever found one that sent out a lot of runners that also did particularly well, I would convert everything to that. But right now it's just a mishmash. But I'm gonna fill the rest of this up with some extra soil. And this, of course, is also going to have extra fertilizer. And each one of these in general has taken about 4 little scoops. Probably do one more in here. Maybe 2, since this is the top tower. I'm trying to anticipate a lot of this soil settling, so I'm trying to overfill them just slightly for that reason. All right, we have our tower rebuilt, and this is the last water reservoir. Sorry for the terrible lighting there, and we'll put the last one on now.
So if you've never grown strawberries before, they come in 2 basic categories. June bearing, which means that all of the fruit comes on at once, tends to be in June, which is why they're called June bearing. And then they're pretty much done for the year in terms of fruit production, versus an everbearing that is supposed to produce all summer. They actually tend to be more early season and then again in the late season. They don't tend to produce a ton during the hot part of the summer unless you live in a fairly mild climate. Greenstalks can be a little tricky to put back together. There are little clips built into the bottoms of each one of these tiers. And what I'm doing right now is going around making sure that they are clearly in where they're supposed to be in and not misaligned. And then I'm also checking to make sure that the leaves of the strawberries are not caught underneath the edge of the compartment above or getting buried underneath the top. And so it can be a little tricky and fiddly to put these things back together. When I first bought this Greenstalk, I did not buy a spinner for the bottom, and I really like the spinner, and I wish I had gotten it sooner. It really does make this kind of work a lot easier. This is the very top tier that is a water reservoir. It also has holes in it that you need to make sure are clear. And same thing, it's got little clips on the bottom, and so it can take a little bit to get everything aligned just so to make sure that it is where it needs to be. The Greenstalk company now sells lids for the top of these so that you don't get bugs and leaves and other things falling into this and then plugging up the holes that are in this top tier. And then lastly, we're going to do some cleanup. This is my favorite use of a full sprayer on a hose. So I'm just going to take all of that soil that I spilled all over my deck and give everything a good rinse. Very satisfying. And this is sitting on a cement pad that we made specifically for this Greenstalk. Greenstalks are designed where they have a water hose at the bottom that will drain out. And then theoretically, you only need to water it from the top. With this kind of work, because the soil was somewhat dry, I did go ahead and water the entire thing in each pocket, partly to make sure everything was well watered and soaked in and settled, but also just to rinse everything off because I had gotten dirt absolutely everywhere. And then I filled up the reservoir at the top. And then theoretically, for the rest of the time that this is in season. For the summer, I shouldn't have to do anything but water this from the top. And then the nice thing is you can add fertilizer to this as you're watering from the top and keep all of those contents fertilized. Because water is continually flushing through this, you do need to maintain fertilizer on a regular schedule in order for it to be successful. But there you go, tribe. Resetting the strawberry Greenstalk. Fingers crossed that this is a better production. And if not, I'm going to give up on strawberries and just start buying them from my fellow farmers, because clearly I am not well suited for it. But excited that this project is finished and everything is looking fabulous. Thanks for watching, tribe. If you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment, and share. I have new content coming out every week.